Here's what I want to do. This morning's going to look a little bit different. We've actually never done what we're about to do here at Radiant. And so this past week, myself and about 7 others took a trip to London. It was not for vacation, for mission purposes. But we went as we have started Radiant Church, and listen, in January, we turned 3 years old. One of the things that we want to have instilled within us here at Radiant is like not just a vision for the city of Syracuse, although we want to have a vision for the city of Syracuse. We want to have a vision for what God is doing around the world. And so often what can happen in our lives is we can kind of get tunnel vision and we can kind of get like, this is all that's happening. And one of the things that we can do to see what God is doing around the world is to take trips and see that very thing. And so I'm gonna ask that group to go ahead and come on up. And so what we're gonna do this morning is we are gonna do kind of a panel discussion about their experience, what they saw, what they observed, the highs and the lows. What I've told them is, listen, I want you to talk about the mountaintop moments, but I also want you guys to be aware, man, there were some hard moments as well. And so I want them to be able to share some of that. So that's what we're gonna do this morning, not just get to hear from me on what took place in London, but also get to hear from, just people who are everyday members of the church and who said yes to going all the way across the pond, taking a 7-8 hour flight and going across and giving up time, giving up finances, giving weeks of vacation, those kind of things. But I want you guys to just kind of get to hear, man, what God is doing all the way around the world. And so that's what we're gonna do this morning. It'll look a little bit different. We will be back in our Ephesians series next week. And so if you're like, man, we normally walk through a book of the Bible. We were in the middle of Ephesians. We'll be back there next week. But this week, I just thought, man, let's just take some time and get to hear about what God is doing. So here's what I want to do. This is a portion of the team. My wife was on the trip as well, and then Hannah Henderson was on the trip. She's traveling back. She went to visit a friend since she was already across. And so here's what I want to do first. Introduce yourself, kind of go down the line here, introduce yourself, and then just kind of share like why you wanted to go on this trip. Okay?
All right, my name's Emily Quinn, and I really wanted to go on this trip just to get myself out of my comfort zone. I've never gone on a missions trip before.
First time out of the country.
First time out of the country, never even been to Canada, so might as well start with London if we're gonna.
Hi, I'm Kayla Mann. I said yes to the trip, and I was really excited to. Carl and I are very new to our faith, so we've only really seen. What God is doing in Syracuse, because that is all that we've been a part of. So we were excited to kind of go over there and see what God was doing somewhere else.
Great.
Yeah, and like she said, and like Jason said, like part of what we do here at Radiant is like belong, grow, and serve. So for me, this was like an opportunity to grow in my like faith individually, but also to serve like people overseas. And obviously we'll talk about that in the panel, but that was kind of my thought process was like, I want to kind of live out like Radiant's mission statement of belong, grow, and serve.
I'm Chad Mosser, and I think a big reason why I wanted to go, I went on a missions trip back in college and just remembering how just being there kind of a different place away from home, even internationally, and seeing how God is moving in a different place and also the need for Jesus in these places and how they need people to go, they need people to be built up there. I was just really excited when I was asked to go be part of it.
My name's Jacob Gunderson. I think similar to Emily, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, and then similar to Chad, I had the opportunity to go on a missions trip in college to Nairobi, Kenya for 2 months, and God really grew my heart for the nations there. And I think just when I was presented with this trip, it was just an opportunity for me to, really serve and grow in my faith and just my heart for the nations.
Love it. Okay. So here's what I want to do. Em, let's start with you. What's something that you saw or were a part of on this trip that like you just can't forget? Like what's something that just stood out to you, a moment, an encounter that you just go, man, I was not anticipating that. I didn't expect that, but man, that caught my attention and it's something I'll never forget.
I mean, there are so many things, but right off day one, we got there. We hadn't slept for hours, but we got to meet with, we went to a coffee shop that also hosts a really small church out there. And we met a couple of people who worked both at the coffee shop and attended the church. And one of those in particular, her name was Rachel. And she was really open and honest with just a story, her testimony of brokenness, of not knowing Jesus, not knowing any faith at all, and just going through pain. And she pulled out her Bible, which was about this big, tiny, and battered, that she had actually received when she was incarcerated at one point in her life. And she could get rid of that Bible. She could buy a new one. She could do anything other than carry that tiny little battered Bible around. But I think that's going to stick in my brain forever because she holds her testimony so close to her heart to remember what Jesus has done for her. Even though she's been handed a really hard set of cards, she still clings to what Jesus has done rather than clinging to what she's been through. And I think I'll see that for a long time.
Yeah, that's good. Chad?
For me, a lot of what we did there was outreach to the community, especially to university students. And it was something that I kind of struggled with for a little bit. Just the awkwardness and uncomfortableness of talking to strangers about faith. And I think the moment that really stuck out to me was towards the end of the trip. I really hadn't had many impactful conversations with anyone, and it was difficult. But the Lord kind of led me to this one student who was just sitting on a bench and started talking with him, opened up about why I was there and my faith. And he mentioned that he was Muslim, and I was immediately like, oh, he's not going to want to hear from me. And it was actually the opposite. We ended up having a 45-minute conversation just about the gospel, Christianity. He shared some about his faith, and just having a really healthy dialogue about that. And I think that was just, that's something I'll never forget. Really have never had a conversation like that with someone before. So that just really stuck out to me.
Yeah, on that particular evening, we were there at the university, and it was probably 20 degrees outside. And Chad is in this conversation, and simultaneously going through my head is, I'm freezing, I just want to go inside. Chad, stop this conversation. But also, Chad, continue the conversation, one of those. And so it was incredible getting to watch him interact and share about his faith just on this little bench with this particular student. So one of the things that we did when we were there was try to figure out, like, where can Radiant fit in all this? Like where can we as a church, like, we want to be present in our city. We for sure get to live in the greatest city known to man. But there's other cities that are out there, and nobody laughed at that. You guys, we live in a great city. But also, we want to be present with what God is doing and see what God is doing around. So, Carl, let me just go to you and say, like, how was it seeing God work? Like, how did you see him work? Maybe in yourself as well as in others. First mission trip to go for you and Kayla. And so how was that for you?
It was tough. It was definitely tough. Chad kind of touched on it. It was like kind of just like thrown to the wolves, I guess you'd say. Is like we just like went out there and we just hit the ground running, and it was tough to get out of your comfort zone at first. And we were actually there with some other churches from other communities. So there was like a group from Louisiana, and for me as a personal challenge, I felt like I was so far behind in my journey and my faith. But just like over the course of the week, like I think like God moved through me, and it was kind of opening me up to like have these different conversations, get out there, try and let myself like come out of my shell and share some of my wisdom and testimony with some people. But it was tough, and it was cool to see it. Like kind of also, we obviously recapped every single day, and we had our own conversations up here, and it was cool to see, talking with everyone up here about their experience, and I wasn't like alone in it. Like I feel like we all grew over the course of the week in our faith, our comfortability in being able to have these conversations. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from this trip was like, yeah, we were only there for a little bit of time and we had the impact that we had, but I think we're going to be able to bring that to this community. So it was a mission trip to like reach nations overseas, but I think like for me as a personal growth thing, like I'm going to be able to bring that to the city of Syracuse and the campus and all that stuff coming back here.
Yeah, one of the things it was a joy to get to watch this team is we did some hard things, like engaging in conversations, like being on college campuses and having to kind of walk up and start conversations. And no matter how extroverted you are, at times that can be a little bit intimidating and that can be a little bit difficult. But to watch watch the team like be able to grow in their confidence and in their desire to like get to engaging conversations from day one when we landed in London to like the last day when we were leaving. What was incredible, like to see the growth. And I think one of the things to draw out for us is like, you might be there going, man, I could never do that. Like thinking about going overseas and striking up conversations or engaging in conversations might be something that just like intimidates you. And I hope that one of the themes that you'll hear this morning is like all of us on this panel at times were like, it was a little bit intimidating, a little bit like nerve wracking to get out of our comfort zones, but knowing like, hey, we are here to share the good news that we have with others. And so when you got to see a Carl or Chad or anybody on this panel like engage in conversation, you would just kind of be like, we did it. You know, it's like the royal we. It's like we finally did it. I had nothing to do with it, but I'll take the win. You know, it's like just one of those. And so was incredible watching this group. So Kayla, let me come to you. Who's someone that you interacted with, that you came in contact with for you that you go, man, that conversation there was worth the trip?
Yeah, I think Emily mentioned Rachel already, so I'm going to kind of like group her in. But Rachel and Ben were a part of that church and that community at the coffee shop that we originally went to. So the coffee shop's mission is over 25% of the people in that coffee shop who are employed there have been incarcerated at one point. And looking from the outside in, Rachel wasn't supposed to, quote unquote, be there. Ben wasn't supposed to be at that coffee shop necessarily. We know why. It was to give us their testimony. And Ben's story, he was originally facing 28 years in prison in London. He was able to get out, I believe, in 2. And I think his story is so impactful because we can sit here and say, well, you don't know what I've done. You know, God doesn't forgive me for what I've done. And looking at Rachel and Ben and knowing, one, all the traumatic things that they've been through, and then also the sins that have kind of gone through their lives, I think you sit here and you remember that God's grace encompasses all. And that truly, whether it was because it was the first conversation, but I think from that moment, Jason, I think you said it too, we could have gotten on the plane that day and gone home and it would have been worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible listening to people's testimony. Like there's something powerful about stories. And each and every one of us, we all have a story. And some of us think, oh, my story is not that powerful. My story is not that impactful. But getting to listen to other people's stories, you never know what you might say that's going to resonate with somebody else, and they're going to go, like, I kind of get that. I kind of understand. And so getting to hear from them the first day, exhausted, hadn't slept all night. If you can sleep on a plane, consider yourself blessed. It is impossible to sleep on a plane, in my opinion. But getting to hear from them right off the bat was like, oh, wow, like that's why we're here. Gandhi, who would you add to that?
Yeah, honestly, my person that I think of would probably be Ben too. I think that, you know, just hearing his testimony was just so impactful of someone who, you know, could not be farther from a Christian before meeting Jesus. And yeah, just so impactful to hear his testimony, and just a good reminder, I think, for all of us, honestly, of the power of our own testimonies of, you know, like Kayla said, like we all probably could have got on that plane right after day one and, you know, have been changed by just him sharing his testimony. Like we have such good stories, not because of anything that we've done, but all because of what Jesus has done. And I think that really stuck with me after that conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that I told the team is often when you get to share, you share about all the good things. Like, it was amazing. Like, we had incredible food, and we got to go watch a rugby match, and we got to, like, talk to people about Jesus. It was incredible. But at the same time, I want you guys also to hear from some of the difficult moments, like some of the struggles that was had. Again, just to paint a realistic picture. So, Carl, I'm going to come to you. Not because you struggle the most, but just because I want you to hear it, and I want anybody else who can jump in as well. What was a challenge?
Yeah.
Like when you think about, we were there from Thursday to Thursday, what were just a couple of the challenges, whether that was spiritual challenges or even physical challenges, what were some of the things that you just kind of go, yeah, that was hard for me?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit. It was hard to like kind of get in the groove of like feeling comfortable enough to go up and share my faith. And it's, I guess, in a way ironic because of the statistics of London. They have over 15 million people. I think it is like 17 and a half. And somewhere around like half of them would claim to be Christians. But 3% of them are only like willing to put themselves out there and share the gospel and like share their faith with someone. So you could be in a room like this, turn to your left, turn to your right, like someone is a Christian, but no one's going to acknowledge it. And so part of what was tough was having that realization that like I might be in the higher percentile instead of the lower percentile if I'm not willing to put myself out there and like walk around campus or the city and strike up conversation. And again, like you have basically a 50-50 chance of having that conversation with someone who like knows Jesus, but there's also a 50% chance that they don't. And that's your opportunity to like share what you know and what you believe. And obviously Chad shared his like bench story about that, and he had that other 50%. But there were some people like Gundy and I played ping pong in just a rec area just to like, again, try and find someone to have a conversation with. And it's more Jacob Gundy's story because he ended up playing the actual ping pong match, but we ended up like playing ping pong with a Christian and had a great story with him about his upbringing. So the challenging part, again, was like putting myself out there. And like I said in my first answer, is like, that's something that I want to bring here. Is like, we have so much opportunity here in where we live to like share that faith. And again, that's kind of where my takeaway from the trip was, from like that challenge to like the growth aspect.
Kayla, would you add anything there? Some conversations you got to have that were
Sure.
challenging?
So I know we have a lot of college kids here, so I'm not too far out of college, but I feel like if someone came up to me while I was on my college campus and offered to buy me dinner, I would say, yeah, of course. Unfortunately, I was trying to find an avenue to spark up a conversation because I didn't feel comfortable just going up to someone and just randomly starting a conversation. So Carl and I were in what they would consider like their dining hall area with like a Subway, a pizza place, etc. And I just looked at Carl and I was like, I'm just gonna start paying for people's food and then start the conversation there. I figured that's
She
like
didn't
the
do this
easiest
when
way.
I was around. She only
Yeah,
did
I
this when
didn't pay
other
for
people were around.
anyone's
It was
food up
great.
here. And I got shut down probably 3 or 4 times. Someone was like, no, that's okay. And then just like turned away from me. So I think I struggled a lot thinking, okay, what kind of looking to God and saying, okay, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And I think I struggled with that a lot spiritually. But just knowing that even offering or even being on campus, and Carl and I would, switch gears and maybe prayer walk instead and just pray over the campus. But yeah, I think it was really hard to have those moments of feeling turned down when you're trying to
Just
start a
trying to
combo.
buy somebody food. That's all I'm trying. Chad, you want to add anything?
I guess I shared about the one conversation I had, but that was one of many. And most of the other ones had nothing. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. Several didn't even make eye contact with me, which was tough. And it was discouraging having a conversation with someone that does not want to hear what you have to say, or even if they are listening, they're like, I don't agree, and like they just, it doesn't feel like you're making any ground there. But I think, thinking back to it, it's harder to remember the bad moments and the bad conversations for me. And I had the one good conversation, and that kind of what sticks with me, just remembering, God's faithful, and even if so many people don't want to have to do with you, like some people do, and so keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I think the non-spiritual challenge for me, we just kind of take for granted. We live, drivable city. You jump in your car at the end of the night. So we'd be out late, till like maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then all of a sudden it's like, now we got to get home. And it would take us like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home, like taking public transportation, jumping bus to bus, missing a bus, and then having to wait 20 minutes. And like, listen, you guys know I'm a little bit of a early riser, early to sleep. Like if I'm in bed by like 8:45, I'm a happy guy. And so like there'd be multiple moments that it was like, we just missed a bus and now we got to wait 30 minutes for the next bus to come. And it was one of those like, even saying that, you're just kind of like, first world problems kind of deal a little bit, but it's like, this is what many people experience every single day. They get off work and then they want to get home and they work an hour and a half bus ride away or a tube ride away, and they got to jump on, and then they got to get off, and they got to make sure they hit the right one, and you got to make sure you hit it right timing. And so, and there are multiple nights where I'm just like, I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired. And then often those would be the times that we would have a good conversation. Like you would be able to, and you're like, man, the Lord knew exactly what he was doing. Like exactly, like missing that bus, like there was a purpose for that. And so I'm just one of those like small things you just don't, you take for granted. You just jump in the car and you get home. So that for me, I don't know if you guys experienced that, but I was just like, I would fall asleep on the bus, like the head bob, just like, don't miss a stop. And so those kind of things. Let me ask this. What did you learn? We all come with presuppositions. We all come with like a little bit of like, this is what I think about the culture. So Emily, let me ask you this. What did you learn about culture? What did you learn about people? What did you learn about the church? Like, so one of the reasons for going and taking this team was to figure out like, where can we as a church, where can Radiant Church serve and and like form partnerships with? So we got to gather with like 4 or 5 other churches and hear their story and talk to them and all those kind of things. And so each of them was really unique. And so that was kind of the purpose for us going. So for you, like hearing from those 4 or 5 churches, like what did you learn about Christianity in London? What did you learn about people in London? What did you learn about the church?
Yeah, so an absolutely surprising fact to me, lots of the people there, not only do they not walk in their faith currently, but they might have never been exposed to Jesus at all. So there were a couple conversations that we said, hey, do you have a faith background? And we just got puzzled looks. They just have nobody in their world that has ever told them about Jesus. They've never heard about the gospel. They've never known that that's a way that you can walk through life. So that being said, that attributes to what the churches look like. When you go to church on a Sunday morning in London, it doesn't look like this. It's 10, 15, 20, 25 people. And that's huge. So we met up with one pastor in particular who they launched a new church and they are seeing 7 people in attendance every week and they are still going. So that is, that was heart-wrenching for sure. I mean, I see their passion and it's so incredible. And that is how Jesus is working through their hearts to still have a drive, to still have an energy to come up every single Sunday. And even not just Sundays, but weekly and just meet the people that they're trying to just hear the word of Jesus.
Yeah. Gundy, what did you learn?
Yeah, I think that before going, I think my expectation was, I mean, just like a quick Google search is like, oh, 40% of people is Christian. Like that's actually a decent amount. Obviously, that's not a number, like not a high number, but still higher than I expected. So then to hear from local churches and like Scott, our IMB missionary partner, that it's really only 3% of the 17 million. That was really jarring to me. And I think that just kind of grew a gospel urgency within me of like, wow, like these people, like, you know, you're going to spend eternity somewhere, and a lot of people aren't spending it in heaven with Jesus. And so I think that struck a chord with me of there's like this is a lost city, and also how big London was. I think I just considered it like a New York City, but it's huge. Like Greater London there's a lot of boroughs, and even also like when we talk about wanting to be a multi-ethnic, multi-generational church, that's London. Like that's a lot of the London churches of one of the universities we were on. I think it was maybe 190 nations were represented. Like that's a lot of people from different backgrounds, like different tribes, different tongues. And so I think that was really cool to like see while we were there of observing how many different people just from all different backgrounds and nationalities.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted them to get to see is, again, we anytime I'm outside of this room and people are asking about Radiant Church and they'll ask, you know, how long we have been in existence, and I'll say, man, we turned 3 in January. And then they'll ask something like, well, man, how many people do you see on a Sunday or something like that? And I'll, tell them what, like, room this size. And every one of them is like, are you kidding me? Like, you're serious right now? And it's because like for them, what we've seen over the last 3 years at Radiant, it is a God thing. It's just absolutely incredible what he's doing, how he's bringing people in, the stories that I mean, one of my favorite things to being the pastor here is like getting to hear testimony and stories from people, how they got connected, what they've seen God do, all those kind of things. And I'd be sitting talking with the pastors, and just getting to share what God has done. You know, like we've had, you know, last 3 years, we're pushing like 50 baptisms now. And it's like, that just, it's almost like numbers they can't compute. And here's where I found my heart. I just take it for granted. You know, it's just like, yeah, we're just here and we just expect. And one of the takeaways for me, like learning about culture, learning about people, the local church, is like, I don't want to take for granted what God's doing here. Like I constantly want to be on my hands and knees and just going, God, thank you. Like none of us deserve any of this, but man, we're just getting to see him work in incredible ways. And so getting to share just some of the things that we're doing, some of the outreach things, like it just blows their minds. And so it's always fun to just be reminded of how faithful God has been to us over these last 3 years. And I can't wait to see what he's going to continue to do over the next few years. So, Kayla, let me go to you on this one. How did this experience, first mission trip you've ever been on, and maybe Carl wants you to answer this too, like how did this experience change the way that you look at your city?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think when we walk into Syracuse and we walk into Radiant Church, we see so many people who are sharing the gospel, who are saying their testimonies. And you talk about baptisms. When we mentioned that there were 11 at our last baptism and then, you know, a couple hundred people here to witness it truly is a shock to them. So I think grateful and blessed to be a part of a community where, like we mentioned before, we're so young in our faith and we have so many people we can turn to ask questions about. You know, I've talked to Caroline so many times about even simple questions of like, how do you handle Santa with your kids? Or how do you do these things? And we know that we can raise our son Trey up in a church where he has so many people to look up to. But I say that because we mentioned Rachel, for example. She is on fire for the Lord, but she even said she has no one who is kind of like pouring into her. And I think we, like you said, we kind of take it for granted that I can look around this room and there's so many people who have poured into me, Carl, Trey already. And it's just feeling so grateful to be a part of it.
Carl, how would you answer that?
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me, which I'm not a part of it here, but we hear all about it, is the Salt Network, Salt Company, and just knowing that like we have a great community here of college students and people pouring into college students. Where we walked around a ton of campuses, and there was one that we walked around. We actually had to stay out front; we weren't allowed in, and like they really don't have a Christian like student union group that's active at all. And the crazy part was like we walked into that campus and just front and center was like a Muslim community group that just like having conversations with people. And it's like that's what that campus needs is like a SALT, obviously like a college group, or like it only takes a few college students to like step up and create that group, and like it'll just grow, like spread like a wildfire, like obviously with the power of the Holy Spirit. And it's just like they just need something like that so bad over there. There's no Christian involvement in any of the campuses, it feels like, with the exception of Brunel and what like Scott's doing there, and they're working on it for sure. But I think that was kind of a huge eye-opening thing. Like you said, we take for granted is like how big. What is our SALT now? 70 people or so?
100.
Yeah, 100. So it's like imagine like 5 people on a campus there could do so much good. And like again, I think we take that for granted how big our college network is in the States.
So what I'm hearing is when we plant a church in London, you and Kayla are going?
To be determined.
Okay. You didn't fall in love with it that much. Em, how would you answer that question? Like how did this trip, like, so one of the things, it's like we want to go, but we want it to also change this so when we come back stateside, we come back in our home, like that it changes us and stirs our affection for the Lord. So how did that work in your life?
Yeah, I think I definitely can walk through life waiting for an opportunity to come to me to share what Jesus has done in my life. But if I've learned anything about what the London avert all eye contact at all times, the opportunity might not come to you. So it puts a fire right in my heart to make that opportunity. I mean, we pass by, whether we're going to work, whether we're going to a coffee shop, wherever we're going in the morning, throughout the day, we pass by a million people that you can just try to look like Jesus as much as you possibly can, because that person might not know what Jesus looks like. So yeah, I think I could speak for all of us, that we've got kind of a newfound energy towards just letting his name be known.
That's good. All right, so last question, it can be answered by any of you. How can our church, so again, one of the reasons for us going was to look at what other churches there, how can Radiant partner with them and come alongside and help encourage or talk through outreach strategy or whatever it might be. So how can our church continue partnering with what God is doing there? Like what do you think that can look like for us?
I think first and foremost, every single pastor that we met with, they just shared the power of prayer. So we should be praying as a church for the whole city of London and each of these churches that we met with, because prayer is so much more powerful, I think, that we even can fathom. It's God who's saving. It's God who is actually reaching these people. So we can be keeping it morning, day, and night, if you think about it, as we pray at 10:02. That harvest in London is so full, and oh my goodness, we've got 2 of the journeymen on the entire campus of Brunel. So the laborers are very few. So if we can keep them in our prayers first and foremost daily, that is such a quick thing that is huge to them.
Anybody else? Chad?
I think I would say the thing I was reflecting on, there was the one church that we had went to, and like they currently had maybe like 1 or 2 students. But like I was saying, they recently just got a journeyman.
Explain what a journeyman is.
A journeyman is through IMB is like a 2-year, I guess you could call it internship, where you're there doing full-time ministry, and kind of being a part of the team there. So and especially reaching a specific campus. And it was wild hearing the pastor be like, we've struggled reaching students, but we have this one guy now, and we feel like he's gonna, alter everything. So it is crazy how just one person can make such a difference. So even praying over that there would be people that go there, because they like Em was saying, that the harvest is plentiful and they need people to go. And even how our church could take a part, like if we go back, consider going.
When?
When?
Not
Oh yeah,
if,
when
when.
we go back.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
when we go back, consider going. Because even for yourself, like you will grow, and just your faith and reliance on the Lord, and just seeing how He's moving in other places in the world,
That's
and just having a heart for the nations.
Love it. Carl?
Yeah, and I just kind of want to go off that too, because again, when I reflect on my experience and like where I started the trip and where I got to, it's like even if you don't feel ready, you're never going to be ready to go. Like there's no preparation that you could like do beforehand. Like we can do like little coaching trainings and like have conversations and get to know the culture, but like you're not going to sit there and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go do this. Like if you're sitting here and you're like young in your faith and you just kind of have that like stirring in you, like I want to do this, like you should just jump. I'm sure if you tell Jason, he'll set you up with the right people. Like Chad said, they're looking for journeymen, journeywomen. And if you don't want to go for 2 years, I'm sure that there's going to be a program that is less than that, like shorter term, summer terms probably. We send people everywhere. It doesn't even have to be London, but London specifically. It was such a good experience. And I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like that was the best week, I feel like, in a long time.
Love it. You guys do me a huge favor in thanking them for their time. I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and vacate the stage. As they're doing that, let me just, one of the reasons why I wanted you to get to hear from them is because every single Sunday, man, they're sitting in these chairs and they're thinking, man, like, God, how can you use me? And you may be asking the same question. You're listening to them talk and you're like, man, I don't know if I could do that. Here's what I want to say, much like Carl, we're going to go back. Like we're going to take another trip next year, and I would love for you to consider joining us and going. Stepping out of your comfort zone, taking a trip across the pond, and you just never know what God might do in and through your life. But here's my other challenge to us. You don't have to go across the pond. Like every single one of us in this room is called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Like every single one of us, like one of our values, we have 6 values. One of our values is neighboring. Where you work, where you play, where you live, you're there for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. And one of the challenges as we talk every single night is like, how are we living this out back in Syracuse? Like, who are the people we're talking with? Who are the people that are next door neighbors? Who's the guy in the cubicle across? Like, who's the neighbor that's driving you crazy? Like, who do you meet at the coffee shop? Like, I want Radiant to be a church that, man, we love the nations of the world. We also love our city. And we want to see our city come to know Jesus as Savior and Lord. And so I think the challenge for me is going on this trip is just going, man, God, how can you continue to use me? Get me out of my comfort zone. Allow me to step out in faith. And that may not just like talking to complete strangers, but who are you building relationships with right now that you can talk to about Jesus? So here's my ask for you. You're gonna hear me talk multiple times over the next few months about London. We're gonna go back. So here's what I want you to do right now. Is I want you to start praying right now if next year this could be you. Reporting back on all that you got to see God do, reporting back on the highs and the lows, reporting back on the things that were like, this was amazing, but also reporting back on, man, that was really hard. You know, the times that I think I grow the most, the times where I'm a little bit of a struggle. Like when everything's easy, it just doesn't challenge. Like when things are hard, it's stretching us. Could that be you? And so this month and next month, we've been taking up this offering. We call it our Global Missions Offering. And our goal is to raise $15,000 that we can send to all of our mission partners. A portion of that will go to our partnership in London. Some of it will go to our church partnerships, church planting partnerships. But I'm just gonna close like this. I want you to just consider giving to the Global Missions Offering. Like right now, we currently sit at $10,000 that we've raised, and 10 units have given to that. So I think we can easily hit 15. I think we can hit it. I really think it's better to give than to receive, and I want us to be able to give to help the mission of God go forth in the city of London and around the world. So here's what I want to do. I want to pray for us. I want the band to come up. And I just want us to sing one more song, responding and thinking back on what our responsibility is to make the name of Jesus known.